Hello, and welcome to today's presentation. I'm Dr. Chris Rapoff, and today we're going to continue this three-part series that I'm sure you as a QME have heard of, or at least you will in the near future. We're discussing the Independent Bill Review process, IBR for short, and the disputed payment appeal process associated with this. This is the second installment of an IBR series, and today we explore why this process has become necessary by illustrating the staggering amount of money associated with the Division of Workers' Compensation process in the state of California. I was flabbergasted by the actual dollar amounts we're dealing with, and I'm sure you will be as well. First, let's review how we've come to this point. As many of you are aware, the process employed by the DWC for reimbursements to QMEs for their medical legal services is less than perfect. In fact, it remains a point of contention for many of our QME colleagues. For example, we provide the service, we submit a timely, properly executed, and thoroughly prepared report, or we bill for the services that we have encountered, and then we wait for payment. And we wait for payment. Many times we wait and wait and wait. Then it feels like maybe there may be a negotiation that has to come together with the claims administrator to get our payment. Well, that's where this stops, because it brings us to the independent bill review process. So if a provider disagrees with the amount paid or a denial of payment by a claims administrator, the QME can now apply for an independent bill review, or an IBR. This is not a new process. This was actually begun in 2013 and instituted by a Senate bill. However, they are trying to reform this bill to make it easier for us as QMEs to take advantage of the process. We'll talk about more of this later. First, a little review from our last session, but to request an IBR, the medical provider must submit an application for an IBR either electronically or in hard copy. An application for an IBR can be completed and submitted electronically by registering as a user on the Maximus Federal Services IBR tracking system. So the Federal Maximus Services, or the IBRO, the Independent Bill Review Organization, provides the DWC with data that they extract from its proprietary software. This data corresponds with information in the final determination letters that are received by the filing parties. And I'm sure you've seen those. Those come with either the check or a denial letter. So copies of these final determination letters for cases that are decided in the current year are actually available on the DWC site within 30 days of their issuance. So you can actually refer to those and review some of those yourself. Here we see a screenshot of an IBR application that was taken from an online site. It's an involved process, and you'll understand why when you learn just how much of the physician's fees are in play and what they're trying to do to rectify that situation. So for the IBRO to consider a disputed ruling, the medical service or the medical legal fee service must be included in a fee schedule that is adopted by the DWC. So what I'm trying to say here is the April 2021 new medical legal fee schedule that restructured all of our reimbursements is the fee schedule that you will be asked to send a copy with your application and to refer to that specific MLFS. We no longer are using the old one where we had the luxury of using an ML104 for those of us who have been in QME, doing QMEs for a while. So this is the new medical legal fee schedule that came into effect in April of 2021. Now, the state of California, Division of Industrial Relations, Division of Workers' Compensation, IBR report analysis of 2022 application filings has just been released. And this is to date through March 31 of 22 from April 1st of 21. And as you can see in this table here, it's phenomenal to see the fee schedule. and the total filings in 2022 over a period of 12 months. So they're looking at an IBR, and we're looking at this table, you're seeing these are the disputes that happen, not the actual filings of reports. So for instance, a contract for reimbursement rates, 426 filings in 2022, and you go through the list down into, if you see in yellow, interpreters fees, and I'll mention this in just a second, but there have been 1,479 interpreter fees services that are being IBR'd or being reviewed in independent bill review. Also, as part of our medical legal fee schedule, MLFS, 408 are actually were filed at IBRs in a period of 12 months of the past 12 months. And you see at the bottom, physician services total 1,134. So of those 3,807, if you look at interpreter services and medical legal fee schedule disputes, we're looking at approximately 2,000 out of 3,800. That's quite a bit considering we're looking at the entire state of California for all billing that has been disputed. As you can see from this table, the case dispositions of overturned and upheld are listed in addition to withdrawn and ineligible, which I'll discuss in the next slide. But as you can see, 2,254 of the 3,807 that were actually applied for or filed were actually overturned. Very few of a percentage, 209, was actually upheld. And we'll get into the statistics a little bit more in the next couple slides. So approximately 25% of the denials were due to being withdrawn. The case was actually withdrawn or ineligible. And those come into categories of untimely requests. You have to request an IBR review within 30 days of your denial letter, your receipt. Your second review was not completed. And if you recall from our first installment, you initially file your fees with the claims administrator, and once you receive a denial and or a reduced payment, then you have to resubmit those under the same guidelines, and you wait for your second submission letter. So then once you receive your second denial letter or your reduced payment letter, then you have 30 days in order for you to complete an IBR application and apply for that. So untimely requests sometimes will just catch the doctor because they didn't follow with the timeline. Another one, a second review not being completed. Once you have received that, you can follow through with the IBR process, but not until you have the second bill review denial or reduction. And then also the review fee is not included or it's an incorrect amount. And we will get into that in our next session as well. So massaging these numbers a little more, of the overturned cases, 2,254 of them, of those, for those totals that were accepted, 91.5% of all of those were overturned, which means there was a change in the amount of monies that changed hands between the claims administrator and the physicians. Only 209 or 8.5% were upheld. So as you can see, once this process takes place, you stand a good chance of winning, provided you have your ducks in a row and you are applying in a timely manner. More information from that report analysis. Of those IBR cases that were overturned, those 2,254 cases, that represented a staggering $3.68 million that were actually in the coffers, not to be distributed to the physicians, but to be kept by a claims administrator. So as you can see, this is not something that is not taken lightly. So looking a little further into this, realizing that 3.68 million was overturned in cases, it kind of has us scratching our head and wondering, well, how much is actually spent or how much is charged or invoiced to the DWC. I do hope you're sitting down for this next slide because it is staggering. Well, I told you should be sitting down, and I hope you are. This medical legal fee schedule billing data from April of 2021 through March 31 of 2022 reflects the amount of money that is billed and is expensed as part of the workers' compensation of California system. If you take a look at the right-hand side, the second from the left column, the MLFS evaluation expense, the total expense is $262 million that are expensed. Now, as you see, they break those down, those expenses at the top, into the columns of the missed appointment, 201, 2, 203, 204, and they basically give us an amount of a percentage amount as well as to what is billed. But what is staggering to see is that ML 201, comprehensive evaluation, the total fees, expenses were $104 million for that 12-month period. So as we see the amount of money that is changing hands and that is being billed and expected to be received, you can understand where there could be a lot of, I won't say discrepancies, but there can be a lot of play. And you can see where these claims administrators can try to be as stingy as they can and try to get away with some things that aren't very ethical and frankly aren't very nice. And I think you're probably aware with where I'm getting at. We'll talk more about that in our next session as well. But this is a staggering amount of money that we're seeing in the workers' compensation system of California. And if you take a look at just the record review fees, if you also look at the interpreter's fees, I wanted to mention this a little bit more because this interpreter fee, we're finding more and more often that the claims administrators are just outright denying the 1.1 valuation that we are allowed to add when we have an interpreter involved in our report, or I'm sorry, in our examination. They're denying them, thinking that, well, 10% of that fee, why in the world would the doctor spend time, were you the old adage, dollar chasing a dime, why would they bother? So if we just arbitrarily or 50% of the time just deny these 1.1 evaluations for having an interpreter present, well, they would tend to save quite a bit of money. And as you see, this situation did play out. That represented $3.9 million over that 12-month period that were actually billed. So just to say that we are due what we are due as far as our finances go, to see what money is out there. All we ask is that everyone just play fair as we do as QME physicians. Well, it was pretty scary, as I had told you it would be. I think hopefully more than anything, it was very enlightening to you to learn just how much money in the form of the services, the report fees, medical legal fees being billed and must be distributed by the parties in the QME process. I think more than anything, it illustrates a need for change, needs reform. This is a dynamic process that is, we hope, evolving and not devolving into something better. We need additional oversight. With the hundreds of millions of dollars that are out there in these fees that need to be reimbursed to the appropriate professionals, we need to be sure that it is being handled in the proper manner. And finally, we do need a new way of doing things. Times change, so should our processes. So we will hopefully get more of that as we move forward. Well, next time we're going to discuss a game, an enlightening game that the claims administrators are playing with those of us that are waiting for invoices to be paid, called IBR Chicken. And believe it or not, the payers are still balking at paying the doctors for their services. We'll also look at the proposed reforms by the California Assembly. that, if passed, will make it a bit easier for us to take advantage of the process and making all parties have some skin in the game. And let's hope that the powers that be in Sacramento will see our plight for what it is and help the physician get back some of the fees and, just as importantly, some of our dignity. Well, thank you once again for spending some time with me as we delve into some less than sexy aspects of our QME career, namely getting paid. I'm Chris Rapoff, and I look forward to spending some time with you next week as we finish this fascinating series on independent bill review, the disputed payment appeal process. Thanks again, and take care.